Senator, here we have it, finally, an actual ethics complaint filed against Justice Alito. What brought you to this point?
Well, two things. First of all, I sit on the Judiciary Committee, and the one thing that we hear every single time that we have a confirmation hearing for a Supreme Court justice is they refuse to answer a question because they say it would be improper or unethical to opine about a matter that might come before the court. So we have every Supreme Court justice on record, including Justice Alito, saying that. And then the next thing you know, there he is talking to a lawyer on the Wall Street Journal editorial page and opining on a matter that might well come before the Supreme Court. So the first thing about this is that element of it is a pretty flagrant violation of a ethics tenet that all of the judges have subscribed to publicly in their confirmation hearings. And the second thing is that went from that to way, way worse as we began to find out, okay, this wasn't just general opining. This was opining in relation to a specific dispute, that the interviewer was the lawyer in that dispute, that the client of the interviewer lawyer in that dispute was Justice Alito's friend and the sort of infamous court fixer, Leonard Leo, and that the information we were seeking, the gravamen of the investigation, was gifts arranged by Leo to Alito. So there's a lot of fact-finding that needs to be done to flesh out those remaining segments, and that's what made this very interesting to me, because you had a clear violation by Justice Alito, so it'll be hard for the court or the Judicial Conference to just shrug this off. And you have a clear interest in further fact-finding, which is the thing that the court has gone out of its way to avoid having any of.
I just want to, give the audience a sense of just how much constitutional law you have to know how wrong his statement is. And that is, of course, that there are 9 Supreme Court justices because Congress decided it would be 9. It had been other numbers at other points in time. I'm not aware of any Supreme Court justice in history, including the very first Supreme Court justices, having the slightest doubt that Congress gets to decide how many Supreme Court justices there are, which is to say, Congress does get to regulate the Supreme Court.
Indeed, not only as to its number, but as to its jurisdiction, its appellate jurisdiction. And indeed, the letter that I wrote to Chief Justice Roberts, received by him also in his capacity as the chair of the Judicial Conference, that's a job he has by virtue of Congress. The Judicial Conference is a body established by Congress. So the idea that none of this has any relation to Congress just has no merit at all. But it's the argument that is being used by the billionaires and now by Justice Alito to try to handicap our investigation into what the facts are, into when there were gifts and how many gifts were there, and what was the scenario in which the gifts were developed, who was the orchestrator of getting them the gifts. All of those things merit investigation, and it's that investigation that the Republicans love to use the word weaponized. This weaponized opinion of Justice Alito is being used to discourage or defeat.
When I read his comments in that interview, I immediately recognized that it was nutty, but I had no idea that it could fit into this description of a violation of ethics, which is on several different points that you raised. And so it's really a stunning document that you've created here, including that passage from Neil Gorsuch in his confirmation hearing, where he refuses to answer a question about the possibility of such a bill existing. You've actually passed the legislation through the Judiciary Committee. It's real legislation. It's moving, and it obviously would someday move to some kind of decision by the Supreme Court, possibly. And there's Samuel Alito talking about it when Judge Gorsuch said he couldn't even talk about the theoretical possibility of someone passing legislation like that.
Yeah, the Gorsuch quote is particularly telling because it's not just saying I can't generally offer an opinion on any matter that might come before the court. He's specifically saying I cannot offer an opinion on the prospect of ethics legislation being done by Congress because that would come before the court. So it would be wrong for me to offer an opinion. And you put that side by side with Alito opining merrily away in the Wall Street Journal editorial pages of all places to a lawyer in the dispute of all people, and it gets pretty ripe.